For most of my life, people have asked me the same question. Who is the greatest distance runner of all time? You would think that after all these years, after the Olympic medals, after the races, after a lifetime spent around tracks and stadiums, I would have a simple answer. I don't. Not because I don't admire greatness, because greatness has too many faces. When people discuss distance running, they usually begin with numbers, world records, Olympic gold medals, championships, split times, statistics. They want an equation, a formula, a ranking. But running has never felt like mathematics to me. Running has always felt like memory. I still remember the sound of spikes touching the track, the silence just before the gun, the strange feeling that arrives halfway through a race, when your body is exhausted but your mind refuses to stop. Those are the things I remember. And when I think about greatness, I think about the athletes who changed how I understood those moments, the athletes who made me dream, the athletes who frightened me, the athletes who forced me to look at running differently, the athletes who proved that human beings are capable of far more than they imagine. This list is not about who was fastest, it is not about who won the most medals, it is about influence. Because records eventually disappear. Every generation breaks the records of the generation before it. But influence survives. Influence moves through time. Influence passes from one runner to another. So today, at 76 years old, I finally have an answer. Not one answer, 5 answers. 5 different men, 5 different definitions of greatness. And strangely enough, the first person on my list was already a legend before I was born. Yet in Finland, his shadow still seemed to stretch across every running track I ever saw. Before I ever ran an Olympic race, I knew the name Paavo Nurmi. Every Finnish child did. Some countries grow up with stories about kings and generals. We grew up with stories about runners. And above all those stories stood one man, Paavo Nurmi. 9 Olympic gold medals, a collection of world records that seemed almost impossible. But the statistics are not why he is here. Paavo changed the idea of what training meant. Before him, running often depended on instinct. Paavo brought discipline, precision, purpose. He trained with a stopwatch in his hand and treated every session as an experiment. Today that sounds normal. Back then it was revolutionary. When I was young, I remember hearing stories about him and thinking that he sounded less like an athlete and more like an explorer. Every run was a search for something, some new limit, some hidden possibility. He taught Finland something extraordinary, that a small country could produce greatness, that world champions do not have to come from giant nations. They can emerge from quiet places and difficult winters. Every Finnish distance runner inherited something from Paavo Nurmi, including me. He did not simply win races. He built an identity. And when your identity is shaped by someone else's example, you carry that example forever. That is greatness. There are athletes who make excellence look easy. Emil Zatopek did the opposite. He made greatness look painful. And somehow that made it even more inspiring. The first time I watched footage of him running, I almost could not believe it. His face looked exhausted. His form looked unconventional. He appeared to be suffering every second. And then he won. Again and again and again. There was something deeply honest about him. He did not pretend that distance running was comfortable. He showed the world exactly what it demanded. Courage, persistence, a willingness to continue after every sensible part of your body wants to stop. Winning the 5,000 meters, the 10,000 meters and the marathon at the same Olympic Games remains one of the greatest achievements in sporting history. I still struggle to comprehend it. I think every distance runner secretly admired Zatopek because he represented something universal. The understanding that greatness is often hidden inside discomfort. Every champion eventually reaches a point where talent is no longer enough. Then what remains? Character. Emil Zatopek taught us that character can carry a person farther than talent ever imagined. That lesson never grows old. Some athletes collect medals, others change the limits of the sport itself. Ron Clark belonged to the second group. I never thought about him simply as a competitor. I thought about him as a phenomenon. 17 world records. 17. That number alone tells you something extraordinary. There was a period when it seemed impossible to discuss distance running without discussing Ron Clark. He made impossible times suddenly appear achievable. That is a rare gift. Athletes remember the people who expand their imagination, because imagination changes training, training changes performance, performance changes history. I respected Ron because he never seemed interested in protecting all limits. He attacked them. Every generation needs someone who challenges assumptions, someone who makes the rest of the world uncomfortable. Ron Clark did exactly that. He proved that records are not permanent walls. They are invitations. And even though Olympic gold escaped him, his influence did not. The greatest athletes are not always defined by medals. Sometimes they are defined by possibility. Different era, different world, yet greatness always speaks the same language. What impressed me about Mo Farah was his understanding of competition. Many runners can run fast. Very few know how to win when everything is on the line. Championship racing is different. The pace changes. The pressure changes. Every decision matters. And somehow, year after year, Mo kept finding answers. Olympic finals, World Championship finals, big moments, same result, victory. Watching him reminded me that intelligence is one of the most underrated qualities in distance running. He knew when to wait, he knew when to attack, he knew when to trust himself. That takes patience. And patience is much harder than people realize. The older I become, the more respect I have for athletes who consistently perform when the whole world is watching. Mo Farah did that repeatedly. Greatness is not simply running your fastest time. Sometimes greatness means understanding exactly what a race requires and delivering it at precisely the right moment. And the last name on my list was probably the easiest, Eliud Kipchoge. I have watched many extraordinary runners. I have watched Olympic champions, world record holders, men who seemed ahead of their time. But Eliud feels different, not because of his victories, because of his philosophy. No human is limited. That sentence is larger than running. It is larger than sport. It is a way of seeing life. When he ran a marathon in under 2 hours, some people argued about conditions and technical details. I wasn't interested in those debates. I was interested in something else. The expression on people's faces. For a few moments, millions of people reconsidered what human beings can achieve. That is influence. That is greatness. The greatest athletes don't merely run faster. They change expectations. And Eliud Kipchoge changed expectations for an entire generation. You may have noticed something. My name isn't on this list. That wasn't difficult, because this list was never about me, and greatness was never something you awarded yourself. This list is about inheritance. Paavo Nurmi gave us discipline. Emil Zatopek gave us courage. Ron Clark gave us possibility. Mo Farah gave us mastery under pressure. Eliud Kipchoge gave us belief. 5 runners, 5 lessons, 5 different forms of greatness. When people discuss greatness, they often imagine a mountain with one person standing at the top. I see something different. I see a torch, one generation carrying it for a while, then passing it forward. No runner owns greatness forever. We borrow it. We learn from it, we add something to it, and then we hand it to the people who come next. That is why I still love this sport, because every generation creates new heroes, new records, new dreams, and somewhere, perhaps tonight, the young runner is watching one of those heroes and quietly thinking, maybe one day that can be me. That thought is where greatness truly begins.